guess what we're doing today? We're going to tackle some fears. We're going to make a zip-around style travel wallet. Introducing the Julie Jetsetter wallet. I'm super excited about this one, perfect for the upcoming travel season. Let's talk about the features. You'll notice on the top here we have an optional D-ring. If you want to add a pre-made wristlet strap, you can carry it by the strap for a wristlet option. Inside, we have 2 slip pockets for your passports. As you can see, I already have them doubled up for a family of 4. This is a pen sleeve. You got a long slip pocket back here. You can put your cash, receipts, boarding pass, whatever you'd like. A zippered coin spot right here. And then you got 10 card slots. And all wraps up in this nice little package, zipped closed. So go ahead and grab your supplies. Meet me right back here and we'll make one together.
All right, let's go over the pattern pieces. First, you're going to have your main body piece. This is just one of the exterior. If you are using quilt cotton for this piece, you will want to block fuse or add a woven interfacing first. And then on the back side, you will want to put a fusible fleece. So quilt cotton or cotton canvas, home decor, anything like that, I do recommend the additional interfacing. But because this is kind of a lighter weight vinyl, I'm not adding any additional interfacing to this piece. I also have my main body template because we'll need that in a later step. This is our passport pocket. We have a left accent, right accent, top accent, and bottom accent, as well as the card slot backing. This is the Peltex stabilizer that we will be inserting at the end. I do feel like this is important regardless of the materials you're using. So even though I'm using vinyl for mine, I will still add this at the end. There's an optional D-ring tab. These are for the card slots. I'm going to show you how I do it kind of production style. It makes the most efficient use of your time doing the card slots this way. You have your zipper pocket liners, 2 of those, a slip pocket liner, pen pocket, and then 2 main body liners. We have our long zipper, shorter zipper, 2 matching poles, and that optional D-ring for the optional D-ring tab. For this next step, I went ahead and grabbed the card slot piece, the pen pocket, and the D-ring tab. These are prep steps before jumping in. So on the back sides of each of these pieces, I did go ahead and draw a line 1/2 inch from the top on the card slot piece, as well as the pen pocket, and then I drew a vertical line down the center of the D-ring tab. I also have some double-sided tape on here because we're going to fold those long edges or the short edge to the line on your card slots, pen pocket, and this D-ring tab. Just folding it to the center line. There you go. Also another double-sided tape there. Hold it to the line. And repeat with the card slots. I haven't bothered to top stitch the D-ring tab along these long edges because it will get topped pretty deep into the seam on our wallet and only just this portion is going to stick up, so didn't bother. But if you'd like to, you can go ahead and top stitch each long edge. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and wrap it around our D-ring here and then clip it in place and set it aside for a later step. I will, however, go ahead and top stitch along the top edge of the folded portion on our pen pocket and our card slots. So we're going to go 1/8 inch from the edge all the way across. Alternatively, if you didn't want to use double-sided tape for this back portion and you're using a quilt cotton or a home decor type fabric, you can use a glue stick and then press it with your iron, and that will also hold that fold the length of your strip. Speed it up a little bit. Now that's all top stitch, I'll go ahead and cut it down to the appropriate size for our card slots. So I went ahead and cut them down into the correct size. You should have 10 card slots, and then you can set those aside. So we're going to stick with the pen pocket, and we're going to grab our pen pocket liner here. I did go ahead and draw the line up from the bottom right here. It doesn't have to be a removable marking because we will cover that with our pen pocket here. So we're going to take this and lay it face down the raw edge at that line. Just go ahead and kind of clip it in place, and I'm going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and we're going to sew just right here, 1/4 inch from the bottom edge of the pen pocket, and then fold it up, baste it along each long edge. To go ahead and draw my 1/4 inch seam allowance just to help me stay accurate with this next step. So as you can see, the liner is face up and the pen pocket is face down, and their edge is at that line. So now we're going to go ahead and pull the pen pocket up and finger press this bottom edge really well and clip it along the sides here to hold it in place. So now I'm just going to baste along these edges to hold the pen pocket in place. I do like to sew in the same direction, so I'm coming up on the bottom, coming to the top on this side as well. That will help prevent it from kind of being pushed and create a ripple in your pen pocket. Go. Next, we're going to go ahead and assemble the interior main body lining. So you want your pen pocket still, and then you're going to grab your 2 main body liner pieces. Make sure your pen pocket is oriented correctly in front of you, so the seam is along the bottom here and the opening is along the top. We're going to take the main body liner and lay it face down onto the pen pocket, so right sides are facing, and line these top edges. Clip along the long edges on both pieces here. You will have this tail. That is expected. You've not done anything wrong yet. And sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance along this edge. Press it open and top stitch. When you come down to the bottom and top edges, make sure you backstitch a good 1/2 inch along each edge, because we will be trimming it down to size using our pattern template, and you don't want those top and bottom edges to unravel. I'm going to finger press this well, and we're going to put the seams underneath the main body liner portion and top stitch an 1/8 inch from the edge. Now we're just going to do the exact same thing with the opposite main body liner. Right sides together, aligning that top edge, clip and sew, press it open and top stitch. You'll notice that most of the pieces that we're assembling are overcut to allow us to trim down and really kind of be accurate, because you'll see it's not uncommon when you attach things like this for one of the edges to be uneven. So if I had cut it exactly to size, we would already be in trouble here. So now we're going to take our main body template and we're going to put it right on top of our piece. And I like to line it up with the bottom here with the tail, and then center it along this panel and trace around it and cut it down to the correct size. I've gone ahead and cut my main body liner down to size, and I've added the center marking. Now we're going to go ahead and take the passport pocket and flip it over. We've got the 1-inch line drawn across the straight edge here. Already added some double-sided tape. Hold that long edge to the line. Top stitch an 1/8 inch from the folded edge, and then we're going to come back down and do a 1/4 inch additional seam below that. Go ahead and find the center of your panel here and draw a removable line here. We're going to place this pocket on top of our main body liner, lining up those center marks along the side here and along the bottom here and there. Clip those in place. We're going to baste around the edge with an 1/8 inch seam allowance, and then we're going to come back over here and we're going to go up, pivot across the top and back down. We want our ending stitches along the bottom that will again be hidden in the seam. This is a stress point going in and out of pockets, so I don't really want to back stitch a few times here because 1, you can see that, but 2, you don't want it to unravel over time. We want our stitches down here. Go ahead and erase that removable line from the center marking here and set that aside for now. I'm going to go ahead and work on our card slots. So you're going to need the card slot backing piece and your 10 card slots. Off camera, I did add the lines where we will be placing our card slots. Just want to draw your attention to that final line. You should have a smidge line excess along the bottom. So if your line ends up a 1/4 inch higher or anything else like that, I would encourage you to double check your measurement that it is accurate, or go ahead and trim it down so you do have an 1/8 inch. Otherwise, when we attach those side accent pieces, you will see that seam or you won't catch it in your seam. So this is important where that final line ends. To make my life easier, I did go ahead and add some double-sided tape along the bottom. It kind of just helps me sew it where the pocket isn't shifting. But I'm going to take the first card slot and lay it exactly on that first line we drew along the top here and stick it in place. And then we're going to sew an 1/8 inch from this edge, attaching it to the card slot backing. So I will be sewing through the double-sided tape, so if that is an issue for you, I would encourage you not to do the tape, but it does really help keeping it from slipping and sliding. So we'll sew this one, and then we add the next one, sew it, next one, sew it, next one, all the way to the bottom. All of them have been attached, and I want to draw your attention to the bottom. There's that 1/8 inch little gap, and then the final stitch right there. So before I move along, I always like to double check that cards are fitting right the way that they should, because there's nothing worse than finishing your wallet and adding the stuff to it and finding out you did your card slots wrong. So just make sure to always do a double check anytime you're adding card slots to something, that you got your measurements right, you didn't close a pocket accidentally, and that it looks good. So I'm very happy with that. So now I'm going to go trim up any overhang if it was a little uneven on the sides, and then we're going to tack this to the card slot backing going up this side and also that side. Now, I like to sew from the bottom up on both sides, again, so that they don't shift as you sew from one side and down the other side, but also because I don't want my pockets to end up doing any of this if I'm going in that direction, the wrong direction. Alrighty, our card slots are officially usable. Now we're going to add the right accent and the left accent, and you will notice they are different dimensions. This one's wider, this one's narrower because of the zipper install on this. Want to keep them oriented correctly. We're going to go ahead and lay them right sides together along these long edges of the card slot. And you'll see that it is longer than it needs to be so that we can trim it down. So go ahead and just center it on these edges here. And repeat with the other side. Center it. And clip. If you need to draw your seam allowances on, again, to stay accurate, I would encourage you to do that because with wallets using smaller seam allowances, it just gets a little bit more complicated. So a 1/4 inch on each side, press them open and top stitch. Now, if you're using quilt cotton for these things, you'll want to take it to your iron and press this really well. I'm using vinyl, so I'm just going to finger press this. Open on both sides, and then top stitch an 1/8 inch from the edge. So as you can see, even though I was trying to be careful centering it on the long edges, you can see this is longer than this one, this is longer than this one. They're very uneven. So that's why we're cutting them oversized so that we can trim them nice and flush and we don't end up too short at any point. There we go, much better. Now I have my short zipper and then the 2 zipper pocket liner pieces here. I've already added a piece of double-sided tape along the right-hand edge. So I'm going to go ahead and center the overcut zipper on that edge. So it will extend beyond the edges. We're just going to center it on there. And I really, really love 1/8 inch double-sided tape for zipper installs because then I don't have to base this in place. I can kind of jump right into sewing and it prevents the zipper from slipping out of place. So then we're going to add this on top. Add another piece of double-sided tape here. Take the pocket liner face down along that edge, centered on the panel. Stick it into the tape there. And sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Swap out to my zipper foot so that I can get as close as I need to be while maintaining a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Just going to finger press that well and press the seam back. Finger press it really well. We're going to leave the liner away on the outside, and we're only going to top stitch just through the zipper and this accent here. I'm just gonna finger press it back into place. Here's what you should be left with. Once again, we want to trim off the excess up top and bottom so it's nice and flush for the edges. Go ahead and add our zipper pull. We're going to add it from the bottom. Pull it about halfway, and now grab the top accent and the bottom accent. So take the top accent and lay it face down, centered along the top there, lining up those edges, and you will have the overhang. Repeat with the bottom accent. And if this is a directional print, you will want to be mindful of that as you're cutting it out and as you're adding them to your pieces. But this is not directional, so it doesn't really matter. Go ahead and just clip it in place. We're going to attach these doing a 1/4 inch seam allowance, press them open, and top stitch. And you will not catch your lining at all because it is cut short. This bottom edge is the problem area if you did not have the correct measurement for that final card slot installation. One, you would either see your stitching here or you wouldn't catch the bottom of this pocket because you have too much of a gap. So that's why it was important that the final landmark be just a smidge 1/8 inch, or you trim it down to make it a smidge 1/8 inch. To carefully trim this excess along the side of the tape so it is flush. And I use scissors for this because I don't want to cut into the tape. That tape can unravel over time if you end up cutting that. So just very carefully using scissors for that. And I'll take a ruler most likely just to make sure that this is really accurate and symmetrical. Measure this. We want it exactly 9 inches tall. So we're going to be lopping off some of the top and the bottom to make it exactly 9 inches tall, but you want to be symmetrical. So what you take off the top, you need to take off the bottom as well. Everything should look nice and symmetrical so far. We've got it trimmed to the right size. Now add the slip pocket liner and then the second zipper pocket liner. I've already added some double-sided tape here, so I'm going to peel that off and lay the slip pocket liner face down along that straight edge here, centered. Just like that. Flip it over. I'm going to line the second zipper pocket liner on the back side of the zipper. I want it lined up with the other side of the liner here. Press in place. So a 1/4 inch seam allowance, press it open, and top stitch just through the slip pocket liner. I'm feeling for my zipper pull. We will need to move that out of the way before we finish up this seam. Go ahead and finger press that well. So I'm just through the slip pocket liner. The zipper pocket is pulled underneath the panel. I'm going to flip the panel over, and now we have our liners here. Fold them up and line up those bottom edges and clip. So I will sew this bottom edge first so that they're perfectly aligned, and then I got to pitch the zipper out of the way, sew up the sides as close to the zipper as you can get on both sides. Now it is hard to get as close to the zipper because we don't want to catch the zipper, but a little gap you're left with, it will be a moot point. Nothing's going to slip through that. So don't stress about this area, just get as close to the gap as possible without catching your zipper. Take the liner and you're going to pull it all the way to the edge here and clip in place. But that should cause your zipper to be folded perfectly in half. So line up all those edges. Just like this. When you flip it over, you can see they all line up. Trim the accent piece to match the rounded corner of the slip pocket liner. Now go ahead and grab your main body liner. And we're going to lay it right on top, aligning those, the side edge, the top edge, and the bottom edge, and clip in place. Now baste through all layers, attaching the left pocket to the main body liner. I'm just going to go ahead and even up some overhang that I see here. It's all perfectly even. Okay, we are almost done. Now we need to do our main zipper install. So we're going to need both of the interior and the exterior main body pieces. Along this top edge, we want to mark our 1/2 inch gap for the D-ring tab. So I'm going to put my ruler up here. I'm going to measure 1/4 inch to the right and to the left of that little center mark here. Just like that. Then we're going to flip this panel over, and I'm going to measure up 2.5 inches from the bottom of this tail, right there, and draw a line. I do that on this piece as well. 2.5 inches up, draw a line. Then I'm going to add some double-sided tape to this bottom tail and fold it to that line. Just like that. So it will kind of roll 1/4 inch along this bottom edge. Okay, so now we want to hold this fold in place, because when we do our final top stitching, we won't be able to sew along this bottom, and we don't want to see stitching lines starting and stopping here and this just being a gap. We want it to stay folded, but we also want it to look like one continuous stitch. And so 1/8 inch up from this folded edge between the tails. So starting here, go across to the edge and sew. Leave the thread tails long, and we're going to pull them to this back side and knot them off. So again, we can look like we have a nice continuous stitching from the front and from the inside. Since the landmark is the tail, we're sewing between the tail on the back. I am sewing with the wrong side up. So if you have a different color in your bobbin versus your top, you're gonna see your top thread on the inside and you're gonna see your bobbin color on this side. So I would switch that out, or you're gonna need to draw your landmarks on the front side. So we're leaving our thread tails long, just like this. And we're going to give this one a gentle tug to pull the stitching to the back side. It went a little far. I think I did an extra stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and pull it one more time so that we can stay within the tails. So now both threads are on the back side. And then you knot these off, singe them, or add fray check, and then it looks beautiful on the front. Go ahead and thread your zipper pull onto your long zipper all the way close to the top. Measure a 1/2 inch down from this top edge and place some markings along the outer edges. Just like that. So I'm going to separate my zipper. And now I'm going to pinch at that mark, and when I pinch it, it causes the zipper coil to shoot to the right. Then I'm just going to lay the zipper tape butted up against that coil. You can add a little pin here and do a tacking stitch with your machine, or you can just kind of burn the nylon coil, which is what I'm doing here. You can grab some pliers or whatever, or a clamp to pinch that together inside of your fingers, but that should hold that fold just like that. We're going to repeat with this side. So I'm just going to pinch at that line, lay the fold to the coil, and singe again. I want to get it to start melting so that you can pinch it together. Just like that. So now it's essentially a stopper, so your zipper pull cannot come off the edge and they're perfectly off to the side. Do a row of tacking stitches on this opposite end so that as we do our zipper install, the pull won't accidentally come off. Before we do our final steps in the zipper install, if you wanted to add your maker's mark somewhere on this panel, now would be the time to do it. This is how it's gonna zip. So this is the front, this is the back. I typically like to add it along on the back side, centered on this panel, or it's also cute kind of in the corner on the front. It depends on what you prefer, but you do want to make sure to stay at least 1/4 inch from this. So I would probably go up an inch and over an inch over here, or at least up an inch on any portion of your main body. But install that now before we move on. Now we're going to go ahead and install our main zipper. So I have the D-ring tab ready to go. I did add 2 different strips of double-sided tape along each side. It is an 1/8 inch, so it should be out of my seam allowance, because by using the tape, I'm not going to baste the zipper in place first. So we're going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. If you do not want to use the double-sided tape, I would encourage you to clip this in place and baste it an 1/8 inch along the edge first, before we put the lining on. Unzip the zipper while it's wrong sides face up. I take the top portion of the zipper with the coil. I'm going to lay that edge butted up next to the marking we did along the top. Then I'm just going to lay the edge down around our main body panel, pressing it into the adhesive. The corners are rounded enough that I'm not snipping into my tape. I don't feel it's necessary for this corner, but if you need to cut little snips to ease it in, you're welcome to do that, but I would not do that on any of the specialty tapes where they have the vertical stripes, because those are woven differently and you do run the risk of your zipper like fraying and shredding. But a normal zipper with the normal weaving pattern on it, I don't have any issues with snipping into my zipper if I need to. So once we get to this bottom faux stitching where it starts to wrap under, just go as far as you can and pinch it into the tape, just like that. So now we're going to start on this side with the opposite piece of the tape. So I'm going to peel off that paper backing. And do your best to make sure it's not twisted. So I'm holding it the right way so it doesn't twist on me, and then I'm laying it also right sides face down right at that marking. Press it down. And just until it starts to wrap to the back. So here's how it should look so far. Again, double check that this isn't twisted in some way, because you twisted the one side, so that it looks just like that. And then we're going to place our D-ring up here. If you are using it, the raw edge is extending above the top. We're going to do a 1/4 inch seam allowance, so I want to give myself just enough wiggle room where the D-ring, or I can pass the D-ring and not catch it in my seam. But I don't really want to line it up like this, because then this really sticks up wide. It's very noticeable, and you have more of a chance of your D-ring spinning with use, which drives me crazy. So I just kind of strategically place it so I have at least a 1/4 inch pathway here, and then I stick it into the adhesive, or you could kind of baste it in place. If you didn't use the 1/8 inch double-sided tape, hopefully you've basted the zipper in place around both sides and 1/8 inch from the edge. So now we need to mark our turning hole along the left-hand edge. So I'm going to get my 6-inch ruler, and I'm going to measure 6 inches along the straight edge and just draw a marking here, because that's going to be where I'm going to stitch my normal stitch length. So before we add our lining, we're going to take it to the machine and we're going to stitch up using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Back stitching well at the beginning and the end here, 1/4 inch across, and back stitching well here. Switch back to my zipper foot so that I can get an accurate seam allowance. So now you're going to take your lining and you're going to lay it right sides together on top of the exterior here. So the card slots will be going towards the right, and the passport pockets will be going towards the left. The easiest way is to know that both your faux stitches are along the bottom. Clip them in place all the way around, and then we'll do our stitching in place. If zipper installs make you nervous and your seam allowances are not so great, I would encourage you to draw the 1/4 inch seam allowance along this back piece so you can follow it and go very, very slow. So I am starting at the very bottom of the opening here. So I'm lining up my needle with the end of those stitches, and I'm going to use the edge of my foot as my guide because that is a 1/4 inch instead of drawing it. And I'm going to sew down to this bottom here and stop, pick up my needle, and start back around. So again, I can't emphasize going slow enough because your corners are going to be important, and a very, very accurate seam allowance is going to be important for the best looking wallet. I'm hand cranking around these curves. Nothing wrong with that. I'm just going to go as close to this curved edge as I comfortably can. I don't want to make it pleated in any way, but I'm going to backstitch here, pull it out, and pick up right back on the other side. As I'm coming around these corners, I'm feeling my zipper. I want to make sure that it's not coiled and rolled into my seam. I'm making sure to feel that it's laying flat, or I'm lifting and I'm pushing it flat. I'm coming up to my D-ring, so I'm also feeling for the D-ring that it's not in my needle path. And I'm coming back up to my turning hole stitching. So I want to make sure I'm exactly in line. I don't want to be on the right or the left of it because we will see that when we go to turn our wallet. So after you've finished stitching, this is the time to look it over very carefully and make sure it's a nice, even and consistent seam allowance all the way around. It's not jagged, you didn't get hung up on anything. I'm kind of feeling for my zipper here, but I'm going to turn it right side out just to take a peek before I do any sort of like trimming or anything, just to make sure I didn't create any pleats on my zipper going around the corner and see if I like it. I just turned it right side out to take a quick peek at my corners, and you can see it did catch a pleat there, and that was what we want to avoid. I'm going to go ahead and turn it back wrong side out, unpick that area, smooth it out, and restitch it. The rest of the corners did look good, so I'm okay with that. So it's just this one that needs to be fixed, but that's why we double check before we move along. Once you got it looking how you want it to look and you've checked your zipper corners, what I'll do is I'll peel the portion with the zipper away, but I will trim down the other part of the corners to reduce bulk. I don't want to cut my zipper. I don't want that fraying. I don't want it unraveling. So I'm just kind of peeling it away and reducing bulk in the corners here. Then we can go and turn it right side out. Be very gentle with your turning because you don't want a whole lot of tugging right here and stretching happening. So if you're using vinyl like me, I'm going to blast it with my hair dryer to just kind of make the vinyl real soft and malleable, and it makes turning it a lot easier. It's not fighting me as much. Now that it's turned right side out, I'm going to smooth out these corners and hammer them as best I can because there are some of the layers from the 2 layers of vinyl there. The side accents and the exterior here. Okay, so even though, like I said, I used vinyl for it's still floppy. It's not what I would like in a wallet, so that's why I do recommend the Peltex stabilizer to go in regardless of the materials you're using. So now we're going to go ahead and insert our Peltex. I fold it like this and insert it into the hole we left on the side. Push it into the corners there. I did cut it narrower so it shouldn't be up under where the bulk of the seam is. We just want to make sure that we've got it nestled even on both sides. So now if you look in here, you can see your Peltex. So we do want to reach in with our finger and pull the tail out here and then tuck it. It doesn't really matter which tail you pull, you just want to cover the Peltex so that when you look in here, you can't see it. Once the Peltex is in place, go ahead and add some double-sided tape just below the stitching line here. If you're using quilt cotton, you would want to press this edge with your iron to get that seam nice and smooth. But now once we create that fold, I'm going to peel back the double-sided tape and stick it in place just beyond the stitching line. Just like this. If you are worried about sewing through double-sided tape around here, you can hand stitch this shut if you want. But otherwise, just take your time folding it and making sure you're just past the stitching line. So when we top stitch, we will catch that in our seam and it will close the hole. Now, before we top stitch, I want to bring your attention to this bottom portion. So our faux stitching is only 1.5 inches across, but you can see the hole left along the bottom is much bigger. So when we go to top stitch and we're sewing from the front, we want to make sure that our zipper tape is tucked into the channel so that it maintains that even seam allowance on the zipper tape because we're going to drop our needle into the last faux stitch here and start from there. But if you pull your zipper out of the way and you start your stitching here, you're going to have a messed up zipper along the bottom. It's going to have all sorts of different pleats you don't want, and it's not going to sit nicely in there. So that's what I mean by making sure it's flush in the channel. The other thing I want to draw your attention to is you want to be able to see your lining. See, I can't see it right now, so it tends to kind of pull under a little bit. So when I go to stitch, I want to make sure I can see it so that my faux stitches have the best chance of lining up. Then I'll tuck it down in there, drop my needle in here, and sew around the perimeter. Okay, so I put my needle in my very last faux stitch there. I did double check that I can see my lining before I put my zipper in this channel. So now I'm going to go ahead and drop my foot. And I'm going to do my best to ride the edge of this along the edge of my material because that's an 1/8 inch. And while I'm sewing, I'm using my fingernails as tension to pull the zipper tape away. I want to be real consistent with that, but that will help prevent this from kind of rolling, your lining from rolling under as well. We're going to leave our thread tails long so it looks like a nice continuous stitch. Make sure anytime you're pausing, your needle is in your material before you pivot at all, and that you're also on the upswing to complete that stitch so you don't have a skipped stitch. So my needle is on the upswing before I pivot and move along. Upswing, pivot. Did forget to mention that before you start your top stitching, make sure you check your bobbin. I do find this to be only a 1 bobbin project, but double check. All right, we're coming back to the beginning of our faux stitches. So we need to do the same thing with our zipper tape where it's laying in the channel, and I want to make sure I can see my liner is lined up with the edge of my material. So I'm going to tuck that into the channel so it looks like I would keep going and I would catch my tape. And the goal is to end back in that first faux stitch. So I'm going to lift up my needle, check that and see. Oh, I'm gonna go one more. All right, now leave your thread tails long. Just like that. So I've already pulled the thread tails from this side to the interior portion. I mean, if you want to knot them off in here, I just found that more difficult for me to do. So I knot them off on the front here. You can see I didn't quite line up because I kind of went rogue and did more of a 1/4 inch versus my 1/8 inch. I think I would have really been spot on if I was accurate with that seam allowance. Just pulling these to the inside and I'm knotting them off. I'll just take a little lighter and singe it. Okay, so now we can kind of give it a zip, see what we're working with, how it looks so far. Looks good. Oops, my D-ring's tucked inside, hold on. So by not having it stick really far up, it's kind of more inconspicuous where it just folds down. You use it, great. You don't use it, it's not noticeable. All right, so now we need to fix this bottom end and finish off that corner there. So I'm gonna add some double-sided tape along this edge and we're gonna tuck it in through the channel that we created. Alrighty, so I did add some double-sided tape to the front side of the zipper here. Mine is 1/4 inch, 1/8 inch would work. You just want it strong, like non-removable tape. This shouldn't be basting tape because this is gonna secure the zipper on the inside of our wallet. Plus the really long tail going in there makes it less likely for it to be pulled out of position. So if you were to cut your zipper tape or you're like, oh, I have a nice zipper I want to use and it's short, it's only like giving me 1 inch, you're more likely when you pull it to pull that out over time. So I would encourage you to keep this tail really long. You need to unzip the wallet for this step. I'm gonna go ahead and peel off the backing. Now it's gonna wanna stick to everything because that's what it's designed to do, but we're just gonna use our finger as best as we can to separate the opening. And I'm gonna use my finger or a screwdriver or something to push it in, but while keep it from touching the back wall so far because we don't want it stuck yet. We want to be able to position this where we need it to go first. You'll notice when you go to position this, you're going to need to push your zipper in further than you think you should. So your zipper pull is going to get hidden inside. It's going to get tucked. It's going to go for really far in. So just take your time positioning this. And then I will zip it and then see how much more I need to push it once I feel like I've gotten it positioned well. So keep pushing it in. And the zipper pulls really far in there. Then kind of pinch it. I need to grab my screwdriver to push this in because this is not what you want. If your zipper is looking like that, that's not great. It's sticking, that's my problem. So I'm gonna grab my screwdriver to, hold on, let me go grab that. So do your best to stick your finger in there to remove it if it's sticking to the wall and getting hung up on there. So that's where the screwdriver comes in handy to kind of push this deep in there. So then I can kind of hold that in place and then start to zip it up. And then when I get to this point, that's when a little pin comes in handy where I can kind of just pull the tape to seat it nicely. Pull it up to where it needs to go. But again, I want to zip it up just to see how that looks, that it's not bowing out along the bottom like we just had it. Just take your time with this part, fiddle with it as you need. And pull that into the channel so that it looks nice, just like that. When you unzip it, it should be able to just still keep going into the channel a little bit and open completely flat. So we liked that when we zipped it. So now I'm going to stick my screwdriver in and like push the zipper in place where I want it. Make sure it didn't shimmy out of place again, and it looks good. I use that needle to pull that into place. If you need to add a little bit of super glue, very, very scant amount in that channel, and then use the pin to pull it into place, that will help secure it. Just keep it away from those coils because we do want it to be able to open nice and flat, and the zipper pull does need to get sucked back in that hole a little bit in order to open completely flat. Congratulations, guys, you did it. I know it could be a doozy and it was probably a challenge in some spots, but now you are ready to travel in style.